Welcome to the inaugural edition of the Front Office Takeover presented by Dine Sports. As we've coined on the podcast, hashtag Sad Monday has come for the 2021 NFL season, and organizations are starting to make moves that will shake up their front offices and hopefully turn the fortunes of their franchises around. That being said, the first team up for a makeover is none other than the New York Giants. GM Dave Gettleman has just retired, and he left the roster in absolute shambles. Between a lame duck head coach and Joe Judge, to a subpar talent pool, to only $2.75 million in cap space for the 2022 season, the Giants are a tough project for any new GM to take on. And for that reason alone, this is number one. So as we've stated, first and foremost, the lame duck head coach status for Joe Judge is not good for anybody. They've already come out and said that he's going to return for 2022, but any GM who's worth their weight in salt is going to want to take this job and bring in his own head coach. So that being said, Joe Judge is going to hit the bricks. He's given his walking papers, go find another job somewhere else. In this scenario, the front office is looking at two different ways of playing this out. Scenario one, we are going after Byron Leffwich of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the offensive coordinator. We're going to offer him a 6-year contract. With that, it offers stability. It offers a way for him to mold the roster under his image and work with the GM hand in hand in order to turn the New York Giants into a perennial contender. Along with that, the caveat being that defensive coordinator Patrick Graham has done a great job in his entire tenure with the New York Giants. So we would recommend that Byron Leffwich comes in, runs the offense. Patrick Graham gets a slight promotion up to assistant head coach and defensive coordinator, and the momentum that's carried on from the defensive side will continue. Now, if for some reason Byron Leffwich turns down our offer and pursues another coaching job somewhere else, we're going to go after the defensive coordinator for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and that's Mr. Todd Bowles. So we're going to offer him a 5-year contract. Obviously, he's a little bit older than Leffwich. He's had a head coaching tenure before with the New York Jets. We're bringing him back into the city where, again, some people would say he failed. I would probably say he did pretty well considering. But we're giving him a 5-year contract because, again, it gives him stability, but we also don't want to tack on that extra year because he's had a chance before. It didn't really work out the way that I'm sure the Jets hoped it would have. So let's give him the benefit of the doubt and give him that 5th year. And in this scenario, obviously we need an offensive mindset coming in because the offense for the New York Giants is a mess. In this scenario, we recommend that Josh Gaddis from the Michigan Wolverines would take the jump up to the pros and become our new offensive coordinator to turn what has been a dismal offense around with the New York Giants. So now that that's all set up, let's get into the actual roster movement to get this team back on track. So as I mentioned before, we have just over $2.75 million in salary cap space for 2022, which is not a lot of money. And anyone who knows, whenever there's a roster that's in need of a complete upgrade, you need money to do that. So we need to start somewhere. So we're looking through our roster, and here are some of the players that we've identified as releases. So starting from the top, veteran tight end Kyle Rudolph, veteran punter Riley Dixon, with an injury settlement, offensive lineman Nick Gates. Again, this one was a tough one. He was showing a lot of promise this season, but unfortunately with the ankle injury that he suffered, the chances of him actually coming back and playing again are very, very slim. And even if he does, he's not going to be the same type of player. So we'll reach an injury settlement with him, but ultimately we'll get that cap space back. And then backup running back Devontae Booker, again, surprisingly making $3 million, too rich for my blood when it comes to a backup running back. So we're going to ultimately axe him off the roster as well. All in all, these 4 moves alone will save us $12.75 million in cap space. So off to a good start. Now, over to restructure. So restructures are a different way of saving cap space, but again, it's making today's problem tomorrow's problem. But considering our lack of cap space, we need to do that. So we'll bite the bullet. We'll pay more signing bonus upfront for these players in order to get them with a lower cap hit for 2022. So the 5 players we've identified are Leonard Williams, Kenny Golladay, Adoree Jackson, Logan Ryan, and Sterling Shepard. Now you might say, why would you keep guys like Kenny Golladay and Sterling Shepard? Given the size of their contracts, given their performance, ultimately it would actually cost us more money to release these guys than it actually would to restructure them. So in this scenario, they're going to provide us some wealth back. We're going to get some money. And ultimately, this is going to be a look, we're investing more guaranteed money in you. Let's get back with a new system and a refreshed look, and let's see if you can, regain your form prior to these large contracts. So ultimately, with these 5 guys taking a restructured deal, we're now saving an additional $29.226 million in cap space. So again, making moves like this are essential for any front office in order to, again, look towards building for the future. So the next one we're going to go to is trades. Now, trades are a little bit trickier in the NFL, particularly because people tend to value their own players a lot more highly than other people would. Now, certain GMs will look at, different problem players on other rosters and say, well, I'm not giving up anything for that player because of XYZ. He makes too much money. He's an off-field problem, not a scheme fit, whatever. But again, trades can be very valuable if you are making the right one. So when you're searching out trades with different GMs, you have to make sure, one, you have a relationship with said GM, because if you're going to make that phone call, the person has to trust you. It's just like anything you do in sales. Selling yourself to somebody is so much more difficult when they don't have a level of trust. So if you are going to approach a general manager, there has to be a level of rapport there. Now, in this scenario, obviously a new GM's coming in. We don't have that. So we've got to be strategic in how we approach this. So we have to offer value to the person that we're offering a trade to. So the first one, obviously, as you can see at the top of the screen, Saquon Barkley. I mean, everybody who sees Saquon Barkley knows that the Giants invested a huge draft pick in him. But ever since he tore his ACL, he has not been the same player. His speed is not there. He's getting injured on different parts of his legs because he's compensating for the knee injury that he suffered. So ultimately, Saquon Barkley can be expendable in this scenario. And again, I think going forward for the Giants to maximize his return value, they need to look at moving that player. Sentimental value aside, this is what's going to be best long-term for the Giants. You look at the running back position, it's not as valuable as it once was, and more teams are going by the committee approach. So again, you look at what you can get back. Not going to get back probably what a lot of Giants fans are hoping for, but he does still carry enough value that you can go and make a call to a team like the Miami Dolphins with a troubled quarterback like Tua Tagovailoa. And again, I say troubled, but only to specific people within the Dolphins organization is he a troubled quarterback. I personally think his upside is massive. He showed this season he's a winning quarterback. He ultimately has a great skill set. So, you know what? If you don't value his skill set, the New York Giants absolutely do. You're looking for a running back. You're looking for a way to sell tickets. You got a new head coach that's going to be coming in, with Miami, with Brian Flores being shown the door as well today. Ultimately, the GM is going to look at that scenario and say, you know what? I have to make a big splash here. I already got rid of my head coach. Now let's see if we can, re-engage this fan base and bring in somebody like a Saquon Barkley, who's a household name, who everybody knows. So in this scenario, we're actually offering Saquon Barkley straight up to Miami for Tua Tagovailoa. Now, again, this trade works from a couple different perspectives. One, again, I mentioned the name value. And two, you look at the quarterback price tags that are coming into the league, on the second contracts nowadays. Quarterbacks are making high 20s, low 30s on average for an average annual value if you're in the top 20. When you look at some of the quarterbacks that are making this money, again, Tua's on a projection to make that much more, right? So again, the sales pitch here is not only are you getting a running back to fix your ground game, we're taking away the possibility of you having to invest a massive cap hit in Tua Tagovailoa at the quarterback position. So now you can go trade for Deshaun Watson if you so choose, go and draft a quarterback, start young, on that rookie contract, whatever you think is best for your organization, and will incur the massive cap hit when he's due for that extension. So again, Saquon for Tua. Number 2, as you see on the list, we're looking at a veteran corner in James Bradbury. And again, 29 years old, great skill set, but he's got a massive contract, over $20 million on a corner who's really got probably 1 or 2 more years left of really elite football. And at the end of the day, as a rebuilding franchise, I don't want to be investing $20 million in any player unless I absolutely have to. So given that cap hit, the return you're going to get for Bradbury is not going to be exactly as high, again, as you would want for a player of his caliber. So you have to go bargain shopping here. As we did with Miami, we're going to Vegas because Vegas has soured on their former number 4 overall pick, Cleland Farrell, the big defensive end out of Clemson. Again, pedigree, skill set, it's there. But there's something obviously not fitting with Las Vegas. So let's offer Bradbury to fix their secondary, because obviously anybody watching the playoff run that Vegas has had, they've struggled mightily against the pass. So you know what? You're bringing a guy like Bradbury. He shores up that one side. You get rid of a guy who's ultimately not a factor for you in Cleland Farrell, and maybe a fresh start is exactly what he needs. So we bring in a big defensive end to add to our stable of front 7 players with the Giants. And then finally, this one I'm sure Giants fans would love to see, Daniel Jones. So now that we've got Tua in tow, we have to look at what to do with Daniel Jones. We already exercised his 5th-year option, so we're stuck with that. But ultimately, Daniel Jones is still going to carry a little bit of value around the league because youth is on his side. He's athletic. He has a good arm. And he definitely has the tools and potential. But again, there's something that's been missing internally where the Giants haven't been able to get the most out of Daniel Jones. So in this scenario, I'm making the assumption that Seattle is going to be shopping Russell Wilson around to see what they can get for him. And ultimately, they're probably going to get a pretty good price because Russell Wilson still carries a lot of that name value, as I mentioned before, with Saquon Barkley. And a team is going to be willing to give Seattle some of those much needed picks that they're going to need in order to get younger and fill out that roster, because Seattle is definitely not the Seattle that they once were. They need to start making moves and move away from those sentimental players like a Russell Wilson. So in this scenario, I'm offering them a chance to get younger at the quarterback position and really give them a chance to, again, turn things around and really push towards the future. So they've got a good stable of running backs in Seattle, a lot of young talent there. The one guy that I really like and have my eye on is DJ Dallas, because not only does he offer great running back potential, he's a fantastic special teams player, good return person, and really could be a 3-pronged player for us. So DJ Dallas can come in and be a versatile weapon, and we're also going to get some draft picks back. So right now, we're going to take a 2023 third-round pick and a 2023 fifth-round pick. So nothing affects Seattle's draft this year because, as I said, they need to get more picks. But this sets us up perfectly for one of the deepest draft classes in recent history in 2023. Now, I put an asterisk beside the 2023 third-round pick because I want to put a little caveat in there as a trade. If Daniel Jones comes in and plays 80% or more of the snaps in 2022, our third-round pick that we'd be getting from them turns into a second-round pick. You see this happen all the time. Obviously, a great example of that is the Carson Wentz to the Indianapolis Colts trade. It was a second-round pick. If you played a certain amount of snaps, it got bumped up to a first. Philadelphia is now sitting with 3 first-round picks. This is something that I want to do with Daniel Jones. Obviously, Daniel Jones doesn't carry a ton of weight. A third and fifth round pick is probably the best that we're going to get. But if we have one of these clauses where he hits one of those plateaus of an 80% snap count, Now we can bump it up to a second. It looks a lot better on paper. So with all these trades combined, if you see at the bottom of the screen, we've got $3.8 million in savings with the Miami trade, $7.3 million in savings with the Las Vegas trade, and $3.3 million in savings with the Seattle trade. All in all, again, we are keeping $14.5 million and we're taking it into our free agent market to make sure that we can resign players and ultimately go out and get some free agents that we need to build for the future. So we're turning our cap space around and we're making it into a very, very, influential position. So before we get into the resigns, I want to take you to the bottom of the screen here. So now you're seeing kind of the fruits of our labor. In 2022, we started out with a cap space of $2.75 million. With the moves that we've made, we're now sitting with almost $60 million in cap space. So now we've created $56.495 million in cap space with the releases, restructurings, and trades. Now, are all those things going to happen? No. But in this scenario, this is exactly what we would do. And that's the bottom line. So we're going to go forward with that. Now, looking at the roster of re-signs that we can bring back for the Giants, this is probably about half the players that are up for re-signing. But again, these are only players that we want to bring back because they offer value to us. We're not just signing bodies to bring into training camp. We can fill out those with undrafted free agents and, again, bargain veterans that get released closer to training camp. So you look at the list there: Jabril Peppers, Lorenzo Carter, Reggie Ragland, Danny Shelton, Austin Johnson, Billy Price, Casey Kreider, Corey Cunningham, Josh Kalu, Kyle Murphy, and Cullen Gillespie. I mean, really the only ones that we'll focus on here. Jabril Peppers, obviously he's a no-brainer re-sign, an all-world safety. He plays linebacker. He can play corner. Very versatile player. So we're going to lock him up to a long-term extension, 4 years for $35 million, the first year being an $8 million cap hit. Lorenzo Carter, again, a situational pass rusher, ultimately has shown that he can get home to the quarterback. So we want to keep guys like that around, especially when they're in their mid-20s. They probably could take the next step and maybe hit that plateau when they're 27, 28 years old. So we'll get him in 2 years, nice bridge deal. Reggie Ragland, again, a depth linebacker, but great tackler inside. Struggles in coverage, but we don't need to have him play for 3 downs. We can have him be a situational player. So we bring him back at a 1-year deal for $3 million. Same with Danny Shelton, really a situational defensive lineman, more of a 3 technique or a 5 technique, a 1 technique in a 3-4. But again, versatile, can play in a 3-4, can play in a 4-3, especially if a guy like Todd Bowles comes in as a defensive coordinator. He plays multiple looks. Danny Shelton can be one of those guys who can move around the defensive line. Same with Austin Johnson. Again, more of a defensive tackle in a 4-3 front, but again, has versatility. And Billy Price, Billy Price is one of those swing offensive linemen that we absolutely need. The offensive line for the New York Giants is an absolute mess, but Billy Price was a little bit of a bright spot for them. Former first-round pick, so he has pedigree from the Cincinnati Bengals. So we're going to bring him in. He can ultimately play between guard and center for us. So again, bring him in on a 2-year deal, $6 million. Really put him in a position where we're going to give him a chance to, compete for a starting job, but he'll be a great depth player for us long-term. Moving over to free agency, now that we've got our players re-signed, our roster's starting to take more shape, now we can start to add pieces and tweaks here and there. So as I mentioned before, the offensive line needs an absolute tune-up. Anyone who watched the New York Giants knows Daniel Jones, for all of his struggles, not all on him. The offensive line definitely gave up a lot of pressures. Really makes it difficult to run the football, really makes it difficult for any quarterback to get momentum going when you can't have the time. So this is where we're going to invest the majority of our money. So the 2 guys who we absolutely want to bring in to shore up the interior of the offensive line, James Daniels, the free agent guard from Chicago. We want to lock him up to a long-term deal. Again, this is going to cost us a lot of money, but at 24 years old and as high of his grade is with Pro Football Focus, this is absolutely the type of guy that can reshape an offensive line with his style of play. Mirroring him on the other side of the line as a left guard is Conor Williams. So we're going to steal him from the Dallas Cowboys. So not only does Conor Williams offer, again, good versatility, he can play tackle, he can play guard, but he can also brings a level of nastiness to him that anybody who watches Dallas's offensive line play, you know that they have a certain tenacity. That's the style of offensive line that we really want to bring and make a traditional thing with the New York Giants. So Conor Williams will bring that. Again, a very young guy, 25 years old. We've got our two guards now locked up for the foreseeable future with James Daniels and Conor Williams. We have a level of tenacity that we can add to our left tackle and Andrew Thomas. Now we can really go out there and run the football. So the two guys I have underneath, Brandon Shell, right tackle from the Seattle Seahawks, and then Andrew Wiley, the right tackle from the Kansas City Chiefs. So these are two guys who, again, they offer versatility. They can play inside and outside. And in Wiley's case, he can actually play between left and right tackle. So again, something that's very, very, very important. You need to have versatile offensive linemen. These are two guys who can definitely bring our offensive line to the next level and offer that depth that we need. Now, from a tight end perspective, we already released Kyle Rudolph. We didn't re-sign Evan Ingram because Evan Ingram has an injury history. He doesn't block. He really doesn't offer anything outside of potential. And at this point, his potential is gone. He is what he is. We're going to move away from that because we want to get more towards a brand of football that we really want to play, which is more hard-nosed and physical in the NFC East. So the two tight ends that we're going to target to bring in to replace that Kyle Rudolph and Evan Ingram production is O.J. Howard and Ian Thomas. O.J. Howard from Tampa Bay, again, would have a relationship with both Byron Leffwich and Todd Bowles. First-round pedigree, injury history, but he's shown that he's a very versatile player. And if Rob Gronkowski isn't wearing a Tampa Bay Buccaneers jersey the last couple of years, O.J. Howard is definitely in the running for a Pro Bowl nod. He's that talented. He's young enough. He's got youth on his side. He's probably recovered enough from his injuries that he can come in and be an impactful player. And if we offer him a 2-year deal worth a moderate $4.5 million a season, we're not really breaking the bank, but he can also offer us exactly what we want, which is blocking and the ability to stretch the field a little bit over the middle. So again, not asking to put a lot on his shoulders, but this is exactly the type of contract that you want for a guy like O.J. Howard. Ian Thomas from Carolina, he's a blocking tight end. 6'7", 270 pounds. This is the type of guy who can, one, be a red zone threat, and two, can really help out in the run game, be an extra offensive lineman out in heavy sets. Again, really want to establish an identity here. So we got rid of Saquon Barkley. So right now our running back room is looking a little bit thin. So again, we want to bring in a good, solid, stable, and a good running back by committee group, because when you have a fresh set of legs in the backfield, it makes a world of difference, especially if they are all talented in different regards. So two guys who would match very well with what we want to do here. Again, having a relationship with the Tampa Bay coaching staff and Ronald Jones, and then Marlon Mack, the former 1,000-yard rusher for Indianapolis, obviously with Jonathan Taylor being there, really no room for Marlon Mack. So looking for a fresh start. These are two guys you can get on a cheap contract. So Ronald Jones for $3 million, I think, is an absolute bargain. He's not bad in the passing game. He runs like his head's on fire. So again, he offers that breakaway speed, break an 80-yard run at any point. And then you look at a guy like Marlon Mack. Does he have the same type of acceleration he had, prior to his injury? Maybe not, but he's obviously got good enough vision. He's obviously got good enough hands. And again, you don't need him to break these 80-yard runs, but if you can have some consistency there, he can offer some pass blocking help. That's the type of running back that you want. So again, for $4.5 million, we're actually paying about half of what we pay for Saquon, and we've got two serviceable guys coming in. Now, these are guys at important positions because you're looking at how do we fill, role player spots. And this is exactly what these following guys are. So Braxton Barrios from the New York Jets, we're going to basically keep him in the same building, but just change his uniform. He's the type of guy who's not going to, catch for 100 balls, 1,000 yards every year, but he's really going to be a glue guy. And that's exactly what you want when you're rebuilding a roster. So you're sensing a theme with a lot of the players that we're bringing in. Braxton Barrios can play in the slot. Obviously, we've got a very deep receiving core, but he can offer some of that versatility that we're looking for. Again, versatility is the theme of the day. PJ Williams, this is a corner from New Orleans who ultimately is being overshadowed by Marcus Lattimore. PJ Williams is a fantastic football player. And again, you look at versatility, can slide out and play safety. He plays the majority of his snaps on the inside, but he can also kick to the outside as well and offer some of that, fill in for the loss of James Bradbury. So I like PJ Williams on a 1-year prove-it deal. Again, you're offering him a $5 million incentive-laden contract. Can be a guy who can be a difference maker on the defensive side, given the right opportunity. So since we have Tua Tagovailoa as our new quarterback, he's going to need some veteran leadership and mentorship. Maybe a guy who can come in and spot start every now and again. You're not asking your backup to come in and win games for you. You're asking him to make sure he doesn't turn the ball over if he's put in the situation of going in the game. So Brian Hoyer is a guy that we've identified as, 1, being cheap, 2, being a really good teammate, and 3, ultimately being like a second coach for Tua on the field. He's going to bring in that veteran presence that every young quarterback needs. He's not going to be breathing down Tua's neck, which is all he's experienced playing in Miami. So this might be a nice breath of fresh air for both Brian and for Tua. I think it's a good fit there. And as far as punters go, we let go of Riley Dixon. We're bringing in a cheaper option. So Michael Palardy, you're the new punter for the New York Giants. So moving over to the draft, this is where teams can make or break themselves. And the Giants have absolutely broken themselves with their recent drafts because they have not pulled the trigger at the right time on the right player. A lot of teams can say that, but the Giants are notorious, especially under Dave Gettleman's regime. So let's get into how we can really transform and keep with the theme of what we're trying to do in building the New York Giants into a tough, physical football team that can compete and win football games the way that you want them to win football games. So we have the fortune of having 2 top 10 picks in the 2022 draft. Number 5, I think, is an absolute no-brainer if he's still sitting there, which I think he will be. The now crowned national champion, Nakobe Dean out of Georgia. This is the best defensive player in football. And I know what you're going to think. Well, you've got Aiden Hutchinson, you've got Kayvon Thibodeau, you've got Kyle Hamilton. I'm telling you, everybody, Nakobe Dean is the best defensive player in college football. And what better way to bring him into a good situation with a new coaching staff, a rejuvenized fan base, and really let him loose and just do what he does, and that's make tackles and make plays on the defensive side. He's a captain from day one. He can really be, again, I'm saying difference maker. He can be a difference maker for us because he offers something that they haven't had there in a long time, and that's tenacity. So speaking of all those keywords we're talking about, we're rebuilding our offensive line from scratch. The only person we've kept is Andrew Thomas at number 7. It's an absolute no-brainer in my eyes. You go and get the number 1 center in the draft, and especially the number 1 center in the draft that I've seen in the last 15 to 20 years, Tyler Linderbaum out of Iowa. When you incorporate a guy like Tyler Linderbaum with the 2 guards you've just brought in James Daniels and Conor Williams, you've now got Andrew Thomas locked in at left tackle, and you've got the 2 men with Shell and Wiley who are going to be fighting it out for that right tackle position. Now you have an offensive line that can go out each and every week and punch people in the mouth and really establish the New York Giants offense as something being extremely potent, especially when you have a motivated quarterback like Tua back there. You've got a good running game with the guys that we've brought in. I think that this is really going to establish the offensive side of the football extremely well. You look in the second round, we've already got a versatile defensive back from Michigan back there in Peppers. This is Peppers 2.0. Daxton Hill can play corner, play safety. He can play off the edge as a blitzing linebacker. He's as versatile as you're going to get in the draft this year. And I think that's the key for a defense that's looking to be creative. You want to have versatility with your defensive players. So Daxton Hill is going to be our pick in the second round. The third round, again, not sure if he's going to make it to us at this pick, but in this scenario, based on draft rankings. He's currently sitting here. We're going to go get Nakobe Dean's teammate, Quay Walker, out of Georgia. The more pedigree you can bring in, and the more winning pedigree you can bring in, the absolute better for a team that's looking for an identity. Quay Walker is so fantastic. He gets overshadowed by Nakobe Dean, but in this scenario, we're going to pair them up and let them do exactly what they just did all season long for Georgia, for the New York Giants. Number 81, we're going to get Zach Harrison out of Ohio State, the big defensive end. Again, he offers pass rush off the edge, can kick inside in certain scenarios. He's got the size and strength to do that. Ultimately, he's going to be a nice rotational piece for our defensive line. 109, we got Assan Haskins, running back out of Michigan. He knows how to run in cold weather. He's not one of those guys that's going to break a 90-yard run, but the vision, the patience, the strength, he brings what all New York Giants fans have been craving. And that's exactly what you want in a New York Giants runner. So Assan Haskins is going to join our stable of running backs. 145, we want to make sure that our tight end position is solid. So again, the Giants have really struggled to identify what their tight end position is going to be ever since Jeremy Shockey left town. Sam Laporta out of Iowa could be a sneaky tight end. He's got size, he's got speed, and again, anybody who follows the NFL, you know that Iowa continually pumps out first-round pedigree tight ends. This guy, we're going to get him with pick number 145. If he pans out the way that he's supposed to, you might be looking at George Kittle 2.0 on the best possible scenario. And worst possible scenario, you're looking at a guy who can contribute as a second tight end and can really be, again, a good building block for you going forward. But again, great value at 145. At number 170, Tyler Vrabel, tackle out of Boston College. He plays right. He can play left tackle. He also brings a little bit of genetic clout to the game because this is the son of Tennessee Titans coach Mike Vrabel. So again, anytime he can get a little bit of tenacity like his old man, we'll definitely take that. And then on number 182, this is our lottery pick. We've got a guy who's sitting at Louisville, and Malik Cunningham, quarterback, who has a very similar skill set to a former Louisville quarterback who's doing some really good things with Baltimore and Lamar Jackson. Malik Cunningham is not very polished. He's very raw, but the skill set is undeniable. The potential is undeniable. And if we can get the right quarterback coach in there, a la Byron Leffwich, maybe we can hone in on something of, really a diamond in the rough with Malik Cunningham at pick number 182. So that is the New York Giants draft in this scenario. And I think if we were able to get all of these players coming in, we're going to make ourselves into such a really good team long-term. This is such a great draft class. Let's hope that we can make that happen. So here we are. We're looking at the New York Giants 2022 depth chart. So you're looking at cornerbacks. You got Adoree Jackson, Logan Ryan, who are ultimately going to be the starters, with PJ Williams, kicking inside to be our third corner. At safety, we got Jabril Peppers, Daxton Hill, and Xavier McKinney and Julian Love. That's a very deep safety group. And again, a lot of talent there, can play a lot of different positions. That's exactly what we want for our defense. For linebackers, our starters are looking like Nakobe Dean, Blake Martinez, and O'Shane Zimenez. So again, you're looking at a guy in Blake Martinez who's coming back off of injury, but ultimately he's a tackling machine. You throw Nakobe Dean beside him, and if he's not ready to come back, Nakobe Dean can actually kick inside to middle linebacker and take over for Blake Martinez until he's ready to come back. You got Reggie Ragland, who's going to be more of the swing guy, rotational guy on rundowns, and of course Quay Walker, who can come in and ultimately take over that starting spot at outside linebacker for us. So from a defensive line perspective, now we're starting to see some of that depth come through. So from left to right, we've got Cleland Farrell, Zach Harrison, and Quincy Roche, who, again, all three of those guys offer different skill sets. But again, if you rotate them frequently, they're going to bring something to the table that's going to allow you to compete every single down. Inside, you've got Dexter Lawrence and Leonard Williams, who, again, you're not going to get too many better tackles than that. Those guys are going to absolutely stuff the run and open up those tackling lanes for Nakobe Dean, Martinez, and Quay Walker. And then you've got backups like Austin Johnson, Denny Shelton, who offer that value. From a right side perspective, Azeez Ojulari came out of nowhere last year as a third-round pick. Ultimately, had a very good pedigree coming into the draft. Fell for unknown reasons, but offers that absolute pass rush from the defensive end spot. We've got Lorenzo Carter there as his primary backup, who again can come in and situationally rush the passer. And then we've got Michael Palardy as our punter and Casey Kreider as our long snapper. Offensively, again, a huge facelift here. So at receiver, very deep, very good group. Again, they can hopefully get motivated with a new offensive system coming in and being utilized in different ways. But Kenny Golladay, Sterling Shepard, Darius Slayton, Kadarius Toney, and Braxton Barrios are really going to be the guys to focus on there. But when you can bring in, 5 solid receivers who can ultimately rotate around the field, now you're going to set up defenses with problems because, again, matchups are everything in the NFL. And if you can have 5 wide receivers who can play anywhere on the field and can pose those problems for these defensive backs and linebackers, you're setting yourself up for success. From a tight end perspective, we've completely revamped the room. So we got OJ Howard and Ian Thomas in free agency, Sam Laporta in the draft. I think that's going to be a very competitive room, but ultimately they're all going to offer something to us, whether it be blocking, whether it be high upside, low risk. So that's a room that I really want to focus on, and ultimately look at maybe making a splash, next year in the draft or in free agency. And then from an offensive line perspective, again, this group, complete facelift, but it was absolutely needed. Andrew Thomas, Conor Williams, Tyler Linderbaum, James Daniels, Brandon Shell, and you got Andrew Wiley, Billy Price, and ultimately you're going to have Shane Lemieux being as the main guys who are going to be rotating in, should one of these guys get hurt. But the starting 5 is starting to look really good compared to what it was at the end of this past season. So again, a big priority for us with the front office makeover, but absolutely need going long term. You're going to protect your quarterback and you're going to establish a good run game. Running backs, we got Ronald Jones, Marlon Mack, DJ Dallas, Assan Haskins. Those are 4 guys who can absolutely offer a little bit of everything for a team that wants to run the football as much as they want to. So you got breakaway potential with Ronald Jones and DJ Dallas. You've also got versatility with DJ Dallas and Marlon Mack. And then you've got just the absolute grind it out. If you need 2 yards, he's going to get it for you in Assan Haskins. Those 4 guys can push each other and ultimately form a stable of backs that the Giants used to have with Brandon Jacobs and Ahmad Bradshaw and Derek Ward. And you'll really start to establish that identity that they've been missing. For our quarterback room, obviously we've got Tua Tagovailoa coming in as our starter. Not as much pressure from internally, but obviously he's facing the bright lights of New York. But I think with that Alabama pedigree that he has, he'll ultimately be able to handle it and come in and win us some football games. A very solid veteran backup in Brian Hoyer to kind of tutelage him and take him to the next level. And then again, our lottery ticket in Malik Cunningham. We don't know what he can become, but if we can get anything out of him as on pick number 182, it's a bonus. And again, you put him in certain packages. You can run kind of a hybrid wildcat look with him in the backfield. I think that he just offers so much upside. You have to get him on the field in some capacity. And then Graham Gano being our kicker and holding it down. Well, that's it, everybody. That is the New York Giants 2022. Let us know how we did in the comments below. And if you really like what you're seeing, this is our first video that we're posting. Please like and subscribe and share, because why wouldn't you? Anyways, thank you for watching. To everyone at Dine Sports, keep doing what you're doing. We'll see you next time for another front office makeover.